And with reaction, ranking member, House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, along with Florida Congressman, he's got a great new book out. I forget the name of that book again. What was the name of that book?
Firebrand.
Firebrand on Amazon.com. All right, Jim, let's start with, well, we got the Ron Johnson Grassley update. Yeah. We wish Senator Grassley the best. I heard he tested positive. Let's get an update on that, and then also where you see all these laws that aren't being obeyed. Why do we have laws if we're not going to even pay attention to them, or we're going to change them after the election or 2 days before the election?
Yeah, the fundamental question, Sean, on your latter point is why? Why don't Democrats want to get to the bottom of all the irregularities, all the problems we saw in the 2020 election? I mean, for goodness sake, Georgia just found 3 counties where they hadn't even counted thousands of votes, and it's 16 days after the election. So Ranking Member Comer and I today, first call for an investigation. We sent a letter to Mr. Nadler and Chairwoman Maloney. Why don't you guys investigate? The committees aren't even meeting this week. Why not? Why not look into this? So that, to me, is the fundamental question. These same Democrats who told us that the rioters and the looters all summer long were peaceful protesters are now the same ones telling us we can trust the vote when everything shows all the problems. Kayleigh just went through them all. Let's look at all that information. And when it comes to Tony Bobolinsky and the Hunter Biden story, Bill Barr should name a special counsel. It's that simple. Name a special counsel to look into that situation.
Joe? Sorry, Matt?
Yeah, I would suggest that the president isn't fighting for his own political fortunes in these legal battles. He's fighting for the rest of us. We all deserve elections where we don't have people voting in more than one state. We don't have people voting after they've changed their address. And the scale is now reaching some significance. In Georgia, these mistakes aren't in the tens or hundreds of votes. They're in the thousands of votes. Maybe we ought to put the people who ran Operation Warp Speed in charge of counting the ballots in Georgia, and they'd be able to get us a result by now. But here's the thing, Sean. If we can flip Georgia by showing that there was not accurate counting there, then I think it pulls back the whole veneer that the media and others have tried to put on these mail-in ballots.
Have you been watching this Secretary of State? That Secretary of State in Georgia is more interested in lying and attacking Lindsey Graham and Doug Collins than he is about the thousands and thousands of votes we're finding a couple of weeks after the election. And the governor,
and this is just
who should be calling us. What's that?
Yeah, like this is just the beginning of that audit. It's not as if they have completed a review and it's 9,000 ballots in the discrepancy category. That's just DeKalb County. So when you get to moving well beyond that, we have an expectation that there could be other errors that literally could flip the outcome in Georgia. And once Georgia flips, we got a lot of questions about Pennsylvania, whether it's the spike in 90-year-olds, more of them registering in the last year to vote than in the prior 4 years combined, including 2 election years. I think that when we really dig into the circumstantial data and into the real data, we'll find out that there was ballot laundering going on here. And when you pair that with the lack of observation, it really raises more questions. Observation of ballots should not be a game of hide and seek, right? You shouldn't have to be, 100 feet away trying to engage in a signature match. This ought to be precise and it ought to be clear. And we're getting anything from precision and clarity out of Georgia and Pennsylvania in particular right now.
Now, Florida had problems, but boy, Ron DeSantis straightened them all out, and it went perfectly. Same with Ohio. Jim Jordan. So what are the next steps here? I mean, look at what they're trying to do in Wisconsin. Yeah, let's change the law now, just before we do all of this investigation, right?
Yeah, the main thing is let the process work out. We got 26 days, Sean, until the Electoral College has to meet. That is enough time for us to look what happens see what happens in the legal cases, see what happens with the recounts, with the audits. And in Georgia, you've had 3 counties. There are 156 other counties in the state of Georgia. You got a Secretary of State that obviously doesn't know what he's doing. Frankly, I think Doug Collins should challenge the Secretary of State and run against him in 2 years. I think that would be better for the state of Georgia and better for the whole country. So let's let the process play out. Let's let the law, the process, and the Constitution work exactly like it's supposed to. Let's get to the bottom of all this, as Matt said, for the good of the country, for the good of this election, for the good of the United States of America. That's what we got to focus on.
But why only a couple of states? Both your states did great. Why these important states? Why here? Why only here and not in other places?
Well, it seems to be the states that stopped counting on election night that are swing states that have all the problems. The ones that kept counting, like Florida, like Ohio, we didn't have any problems. So all the states that sort of halted the count for a while and then picked it up later, that seems to be all the states that have the problems. So let's make sure we get to the bottom. I thought Pennsylvania was the worst. Now I think Georgia's given Pennsylvania a run for the money and just how bad, how inefficiently they ran this election.
And you know what, Matt? The Democrats are going to want more mail-in ballots, more early voting. Maybe we'll have elections that go on in perpetuity, you know, maybe 3 months, 4 months, and then maybe we'll count them for another 12 months and make sure that they get the outcome that they want. It seems that
dead
we
people
should have
don't always
election
vote,
day.
but when they do, they prefer to vote by mail. You know, I mean, like when we all showed up at the town center at the local elementary school and voted in person, we knew the results of the election that night, and if it was super close, maybe early the next morning. But now, as Democrats have separated the verification process from the voting process, we start to see these irregularities like in Wayne County, where there are concerns that there are more cast ballots than there are actual voters. And that is only exacerbated by a system that reduces the ability to have real-time verification, like a human being standing there actually voting. And I do predict that if the Democrats get more power in Washington, they'll do everything they can to try to keep that power by eroding the integrity of the vote. Jim and I'll have a role to play fighting back against that, but so do state legislators and secretaries of state and chief election officials. We need them to buck up and realize that our democracy is at stake.
Do me a favor, go to Georgia, talk to the governor and secretary of state. They can learn something from you. All right, thank you both.